Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of the iOS Read Essentials podcast. Here we discuss the strategies in your journey to become a complete senior iOS developer. My name is Bogdan, I'm a senior iOS developer and lead instructor in the iOS Read Essentials program, the online training program for iOS developers who want to become complete senior developers. Today our special guest is Peter from the Netherlands, a senior iOS developer and student of the iOS Read Essentials program. Hi, Peter, and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Bogdan. Thanks. Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you. I've been looking forward to our conversation today.
Yeah, me too. Nice.
Yeah. Let's give our previewers a quick glimpse of what we're going to cover today. So what would you say are your biggest achievements with the program that we can elaborate on?
Well, the biggest achievement for me personally is during my career, I have been close to a burnout a couple of times, 2 times to be precise, and mainly because of the program. They teach me some skills that help me to never be stressed again. Basically, like I can now clearly make informed decisions and focus on okay, keep true to your discipline, and that's the best thing you can do.
Cool. So, first of all, I'm empathic about just being at that point of burnout. I know it's very painful. I've experienced it myself. But to maybe bring a bit of clarity, and of course we'll dig into this because I'm really curious on how that happened. But what would you say helped you to reduce the stress and to come back to a state where you can be
like peace of mind, or
in peace of mind state where you
yeah.
just like what you do and you don't feel like you want to end each day at the
Well, I can elaborate a little bit. I mean, I think one major thing is that before I lacked a lot of technical skills to handle things properly.
right.
A lot of stressing out because of deadlines, stuff like that, and also mainly because after I graduated, I joined a company as an iOS developer, but their main business was basically like they were building web shops for the fashion industry. So I joined there and was called to build an iOS app, which was nice, but also there was no guidance, no one, no mentor, whatever. So I had to learn everything from scratch, and because of that, I missed. I mean, because of the lack of knowledge and proper understanding of all the things that are required to build something maintainable and sustainable. It didn't take really long to eventually reach a point that I just couldn't move forward anymore. The code was just too messy. And then, eventually I had to rebuild everything from scratch. And it was kind of annoying because nobody was there to help me out. So it was kind of stressful.
Right. So I get that. Thanks for explaining. Of course, we can dive into into it deeper. For now, what I want to highlight in your response was most of or a big part of that stress came from just lacking some foundational knowledge, some foundational skills, and we can elaborate on that as we go. For now, I just want to say that it's really amazing to see somebody that managed to overcome that situation, that being at the lowest point where you are close to the burnout, you like probably feel unmotivated and everything. So congrats for being able to turn it around.
Thanks.
And for you watching, you might have encountered this, or if you haven't, you might in the future. So I would say stay until the end and pay attention, see how Peter did it, how he managed to re-put his path on a upwards trajectory, how to avoid that burnout from happening again, and just having that awareness of how your career is progressing and if you're on the right track. Because our goal in this podcast is to find these replicable steps that you can follow as well to achieve similar results. So Peter, to give more context, let's start from your background and explain a bit, if you can, how you started with development, with iOS development, and how your career has progressed to these points, to these difficult points of close to a burnout and things like that. So can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I can elaborate a little bit. Yeah, I can go back. Like, I got an interest in programming. Well, so a couple of years before I started studying computer science. So building some web pages, some HTML, CSS with my brother. We used to play a lot of video games and decided that it would be nice if we can create a personal website where we can post things related that we are doing and using these games, some kind of guild, things like that. So that's where it all started. Then a couple of years later, I decided I really want to study this. So I went to college for a couple of years, and I tried out some iOS development there for the first time, and I was just hooked. I don't know, it was something that got my interest. So I decided to move forward and spent most of my time doing iOS development during college. I never stopped basically. So that's now, I think it's almost 9 years ago, close to 9 years that I started as an iOS developer. It was just a couple of months before. I think it was a couple of months before Swift was announced, so I had to do some Objective-C as well. I started with some Objective-C, which was nice, but yeah, I prefer Swift nowadays.
I think we all do.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, I joined a company right after I graduated, building iOS apps for them. Like I was called to create some point of sale application, because they were mainly focused on web shops for the fashion industry here in the Netherlands. Some of the smaller fashion stores. So they had both a website and the physical stores, and it would be nice if we could create a point of sale system that was kind of linked to each other, like one system, one centralized place where they can manage their customers, orders, returns, payments, everything. So I was called to build that, which kind of nice to do, but I struggled big time because I didn't have any knowledge of iOS. Well, some Swift, but not familiar at all with UIKit, and I didn't really have a proper foundation. So it was nice that at first I got some time. Like, okay, take your time to dive into this and to learn some stuff. But then eventually, we had some customers that would like to have some features, and then more pressure, and more responsibilities as well. But for sure, I was lacking some foundational knowledge that was required to lead these kind of things, right? I mean, of course, there were some backend developers as well that could help me out and explain some things, but I was still on my own. No pull request reviews, for example, no code reviews. That's what I want to say. So yeah, it was kind of everything was on my shoulders. Had to do everything from scratch.
Right. So I think I started similarly, and I do understand. So now looking back, I think it's super helpful to have some kind of a leadership or mentorship better at the beginning of your career. And from what I understand, you didn't have that. So even though you had these colleagues that were working on other things like backend services and things like that, you just were on your own, as you said. So probably didn't even use branches, I guess. It was my case when I was working alone. So
same story.
You're just like a man, like in the Survivor show,
that's it,
when you're
basically
alone somewhere and whatever you decide is good enough.
Hopefully it turns out well, but most of the cases it didn't. So
no, because as you said, maintainable code does not happen by accident, right? It's not something you just like, I code as I want and it's all good and maintainable and I can keep changing it easily. Like, it's not like that. If it were, then everybody would have it, right? So
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I would say I do not recommend my career path. Well, of course, it made me eventually start looking for solutions, basically. So that was kind of nice, but it was stressful, and it would be really beneficial if you just have a mentor that can help you out, steer you in the point you in the right direction, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was helpful. It was not necessarily a great experience, but I learned a lot. But I think on the other hand, I also wasted a lot of time and a lot of stress that I mean, it's not worth it. So if you have an option, just join a company where you have a good mentor, good seniors that want to help you out. That's would be really nice if you. I prefer that, to be honest.
Yeah, it can boost your career path for sure.
Yeah, drastically.
Just curious, how long did you work for that company?
I think it was a little bit over 6 years, I guess.
Wow.
And funny thing is that during that time, I had to rebuild that application twice because at the point I realized, okay, this is unmaintainable. Let's rewrite it. I basically have the same skills, right? So the same thing happened again, and that was the point that I thought, okay, this is not going to work. In the meantime, I was reading books and courses and reading articles on the internet about, okay, there needs to be some patterns that gonna help me resolve my issues. Like I tried MVVM and Viper and everything that you can find on the internet, but it didn't solve my issues. Nope.
Right. So you immediately knew that there was some lack of knowledge that was leading to this code that's hard to maintain, hard to deliver, things like that.
Yeah, definitely.
But just reading about it probably didn't, like you said, didn't fix it. I know it was the same for me. Applying something that you learn is very, I think it's the hardest point of the learning journey, right? So you learn it, it's like, sounds all well in theory, and then I come back to my project and it's like, how is this gonna work here? Or
yeah, exactly. I can relate. I mean, I remember that I was reading, I think it was a dependency injection book in .NET. Is it by Mark Seaman, I guess?
Yeah.
Not sure.
Awesome book.
Yeah, it's a nice book, but at that time I read it and it made some kind of sense. But I also was thinking like, okay, but I see all these components that doesn't make sense for iOS because where it needs to fit somewhere in the acronym, like for the MVVM stuff, right? So it didn't make sense. And at that point, I was like, just discard it. It's not going to work. But it was definitely the wrong decision. But now I understand.
Yeah, it's difficult to, like you mentioned. So, for instance, dependency injection and the topic covered in detail by Mark Seaman in the book is not like an easy concept to get, especially if you lack other foundational skills. So, I've also read the book, and I think it requires a lot of building blocks on which you can learn dependency injection. It explains different patterns. It explains all these code smells and Andy patterns and everything. So you can't grasp that unless you have the higher level view and all the details, all the for instance, most of the design patterns that are mentioned in the book are not trivial ones. So
definitely.
So, but again, I think the biggest point for me would be, if we were to highlight the how your career went. So you were the only developer. You were asked to build something that fortunately gained more and more users, but unfortunately for you, it came with the challenges of keeping a code base alive and maintainable for 6 years or more. And you tried the approach of doing like I don't know, individual studying and trying to get new skills, new knowledge from books. And by the way, dependency injection is one of the top books, right? So as a software developer, what else would you read? And clean architecture and dependency injection and I don't know, other like working effectively with legacy code. Those are the books, right? The main books that you can learn from. But again, I would underline the fact that just reading these is not trivial to gain that knowledge. And like in your case, like you read the book, but it just didn't click. It didn't make any. You would say things like, okay, this doesn't apply. Like there's no way I can create all these components, like you said. That's a great example because you don't like you lack the practicality, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So was that the time where you found out about the Essential Developer Channel and the iOS Lead Essentials program? Was that like on the timeline where they overlapped?
Well, kind of. Well, I started by reading some books like the one that we just mentioned, and also a book about extreme programming and test-driven development. But it made sense, but I couldn't just go there and apply it. Like, so I went looking for solutions, and eventually I stumbled upon the YouTube channel from Essential Developer. What's like, I think from now it's almost 6 years ago, maybe more, when they just started out with the quiz engine, like the professional engineering series, where they go there and build the quiz app, for example. So that's where, basically that's the first contact with Essential Developer.
And how was that? How did you see the content that the guys were publishing compared to the to the issues you were struggling with, to the problems you had with your code base? Like, how would you say the relationship was there? Would you find similarities? Was that the thing that got you hooked on the content, or?
Well, I think it just felt completely different compared to all the other things that you find on the internet. Like, there are a lot of tutorials, blog posts and stuff like that, but it just felt like, okay, I tried all these things, but it doesn't work, and I couldn't find any good resources about how can I do proper TDD in Swift, for example. I mean, there's a lot of content about TDD, but nothing specifically about Swift. So it was kind of interesting to see them pair up and implement this step by step in small verified steps. This was the point that something started to click in my head. Like, okay, I think this content is really valuable. It's the level of quality, basically. It was just. Yeah, it doesn't even come close to everything else that you can find on the internet. So I remember that I coded along like 3 times, just replicate each step that they do and try to repeat that or to incorporate that in my day-to-day work, which was kind of nice. So it was just extremely valuable, that experience.
Yeah, I agree. I felt the same way when I saw the content from the program and from the Essential Developer channel the first time. I felt the same way. Like, it had so much depth and it connected all the dots, whereas with many other pieces of content, it's just like one piece and I have no idea how to apply it. I have no idea how it connects to everything else. So it's just almost random content.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Just to paint an even more clear picture. So you came to the content at that time where you were having issues, and can we detail a bit? Can you explain a bit what those issues were, and actually how you knew, how you got to the conclusion that you had certain problems with the way you work and that something needs to be fixed? Because that's a bugger for many people.
Yeah.
Like they don't even know that what they're doing is not optimal. leading to complexity, to maintainability issues. They don't know. Like you ask them, how are things? Like, good, yeah, that's expected. So first thing I would say, how do you actually learn? How do you discover that, hey, this is an issue? Like, and then what was those issues?
Well, that was the major issue. I mean, like nobody was there to point me in the right direction. Like, okay, you need to focus on this because this is really valuable. This is the foundation, for example. And it all started by with test-driven development, because I had this idea in my mind, like, okay, I have a lot of bugs, and if I create some tests, then eventually, like, that should solve my problems, right? So it kind of got me, kind of hooked on the idea of test-driven development, and just wanted to learn about it. But at that time, I didn't know that there was so many other things that I need to learn to get this proper foundation, basically, on which you can build upon. You don't even know all the pieces of the puzzle. Like, it was. And I could go there and read some books, but is it actually the best thing for you to focus on right now? I really didn't know. And it wasn't until I joined the program that all these pieces that things that I read about and practiced before were starting to make sense. Like, it started to click, and now I can link all these things together and see, like, okay, and now I get a clear picture of everything that I need. And the funny thing is that, well, not the funny thing, but that the great value of the course is that everything you need, like to create a proper foundation to build upon, is already, it's there, and in the right order. Just go through the lectures, and then everything will click eventually. And that it's so nice to see. I mean, most developers I meet don't have this proper foundation. If, at least that's my experience. A lot of people think, like, okay, yeah, I know how to do a dependency injection, but then if you look at the solutions they come up with, then I think this is just some anti-patterns and stuff. This is not going to help us, because this can be problematic, and they just don't understand, or they don't want to understand it. I don't know. It's just like, and maybe it's a thing that most schools, like most colleges and courses, just, in my opinion, I think they just fail to give you that, to provide you that proper foundation. I mean, in my experience, it was just like, okay, this is the basic concepts of classes and how it works, like inheritance and stuff like that. And then it just stops. Like, okay, build this application. Nobody goes there, gives you some advice on, okay, this might be problematic, or this is tightly coupled, or maybe you should try this out, or not even testing in my case. Like, I never wrote a test during college. It's I don't know, maybe, I'm not sure why this is happening, but I think that's the major issue in this industry, that they just fail to provide you, like, a clear guide. Okay, these are the important things you need to focus on. Maybe they don't need to go in depth, but at least provide you some things that, okay, this is important, focus on that, and then you will get there.
Yeah, I mean, I see them as different levels. So you cannot have the full picture until you understand all the small pieces. Like, it's very hard for somebody to understand development in a way like you just explained, where you see all the pieces together, where you see how testing is linked to modularity, to the solid principles, to dependency injection, to patterns, different patterns, where you use them, you don't use them, all these decisions. Like, it's a high level skill, like that awareness of, okay, this is the issues I'm trying to resolve, so I'm gonna use this strategy or that strategy. Again, to be able to learn that, first of all, in like university, you'd have to have professors that have many years of experience in the field dealing with maintainability, because if you don't work on a project for a long time, you don't know how maintainability can be an issue. It's relatively easy to create a solution at first when it's like V1, like version 1.
Yeah.
You do it, like you can put a junior to it and they'll do a decent job. It's because you don't have to iterate on it, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to extend it. There's no benefit in creating, I don't know, more modularity, to creating an open closed system that allows adding features with just new entities and things like that.
Yeah,
there's no benefit, right? So until
exactly.
you are exposed to, like you were, right? That's a great example. I've been writing the same code base for 6 years. I'm the only maintainer, so I cannot blame other people for creating a mess. And I see, like, the code I wrote just is fighting against me, right? Every time I need to add a new feature or change it, is like, I cannot do it, so I add more tech debt. So that's the natural progression. I think until you go through that journey, you cannot understand, like, okay, no, I need to have a better understanding. I need to have, like, better skills. What are the what's missing? What worked? What didn't work? So all these, let's say, feedback loops, right? Where you find yourself in the position of also seeing the results of your decisions in a longer term. There's no way to it. So in my experience, like, I learned a lot in university, but of course my professors did not have this in-field experience with having to deal with what we call today a legacy code base, right? So
yes,
then you feel like, oh, okay, then we need something else. Or you start to study and you see, like, some people, like you mentioned, Ken Beck in extreme programming, explain the different perspective on things. Or, okay, how those people did it? Like, what principles did they follow? What decisions did they make? Right? So it's all a multi-level foundation, which you cannot just shortcut and say,
no,
like,
you can't
just get there. Like, it doesn't work.
No, it's not
like
going to
that.
happen. Exactly. Yeah, makes total sense.
I see this with junior developers. Like, I explain some concepts and they get it, but they don't know what happens when you don't follow it. Right?
Yeah.
Until you feel the pain, like, oh, man, this like, the frustration of not being able to change. So somebody says, just change the order of 2 buttons in your app, and you have to work a week for it. Right? That's the point where you say, I just build it in the worst possible way because I cannot change the order of 2 buttons without breaking everything. Right?
Yeah, so how is that possible?
Exactly. I think it's all natural to do it like that.
Yeah, and also, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. And also, like, I think a couple of most people, especially if you are like a contractor or something, that you only short term on a specific or a particular project, for example. You go there for a year, do your coding, and then leave. Then, if that's what you're doing, then in most cases, I think that you will never be exposed to the mistakes that you have made, like the consequences of that. Like, before that pops up, then you're already gone to the next. Like, and in my case, it was like I've been there for 6 years, and I clearly saw that I was the one that created this mess, and that I need to figure out how to avoid that. Like, if you only stay in a company for like a year and go there and look at the code and say, the person before me he created such a messy code base, but you never realize that you do the same thing.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I would also stress even that extra experience. So, because most people find themselves in this position. So they go to a company, they see the code base, 99% of the time they say, oh, what a messy code base these guys created. And if only we would do refactor, I would make it so perfect. And you were in that shoes, right? And with your work, and you refactored it, and I don't know how many months or years after that, you said, like, again, same mistake. It's again not maintainable. We need to rewrite it again. So just having that experience shows you very clearly that unless you learn a new skill on how to rewrite or refactor some solution, it won't be better. Like,
nope, not
and
gonna
as you
happen.
said, if you're there for long enough, you see that even the thing that you were sure is gonna be way better, it's not, right? So
Yep, exactly.
that's a that's a good exercise. But I see so many people with just this experience where they go to join a team, the code base is legacy. Like nowadays, almost every code base is called legacy just because you don't like it. So I think it's just a term you put like, yeah, it's legacy. What does
Yeah.
it mean? And to a better point, like you said, I really like this. So it's in line with my view on ownership. So what mess am I creating? Like, forget other people. Like, it's really easy to see the mess the previous guy did, but what are you actually doing? That should be
Exactly the
more
same.
yeah, or worse.
Yeah, even worse.
Yeah.
Nice.
So awesome. Like I'm enjoying this because I've seen this happen so many times, and unless you start to look at yourself as the problem, there's never gonna be a big change in the way you work.
Nope.
Because you have to come to the conclusion, this cannot work anymore. I cannot keep doing the same thing because the same thing will happen. So until you get to this hard stop, there's no changing anything. Like, it's just making small adaptations, which most of the time don't make much difference. So, but just to summarize, because I would like us to move to a more positive line of discussion. So what I got from your story was, of course, the biggest struggle was stress overall because of the way the project evolved and the deadlines that kept appearing and the lack of leadership and of mentorship and of knowledge of how you should progress. So you were at the point where you tried most of the things you could try on your own, basically.
Yeah.
And that didn't work. You got to rewrite your app a couple of times. And of course, that when you have to rewrite, unless you've done it, you don't know that it's not easy to do it. It's a painful thing, and it's painful mentally because you, again, kind of have to admit that what you did previously was not good enough. So it can be daunting. But having all these issues, and of course, if we dig into more details, perhaps more arise. But I think it's a good. We can understand the situation you were in pretty well. Then you came across the content on the YouTube channel. You found out about the program, and let's go into that. And first, if you can explain us how you decided to join the program.
Okay. Well, yeah, I was already exposed to the content on YouTube, which I really liked it. Was really valuable, but at that time, yeah, I was like, okay, I want to go and find another job. Like, I need to have other developers to talk with, to share ideas, to learn from. So I decided to search for another job, which eventually I landed a new job. And I thought, like, okay, now I am going to join this company. They're pretty well compensated for their work, so they need to be very skilled, right? And of course, some of them were pretty skilled, but I noticed that they had exactly the same problems, and they didn't even recognize that there are some things that could be improved drastically, like things that could be problematic in the near future. But nobody listens to me because I was still, I didn't really know what level am I. Am I a junior or a mid level developer? Because I couldn't compare myself with anyone. Like, so I went there, and what I noticed that they didn't really listen to my ideas, but I don't exactly know why. Maybe it's because their perception of, like, okay, this guy is not that it's not that good, but yeah, things like that. So
can it also be maybe lack of ability to express your ideas well? Might
Yeah,
that
also,
be involved?
also,
Okay.
also, yeah. It's not only. I think it's a combination. Like what you said, I couldn't clearly express myself, but at the same time, it felt like okay, this guy has ideas that you can't find it on the internet, for example. Like
Right.
it's only things that are written in the books, but most of the things are not there if you follow a simple tutorial or a blog post or things like that. So it's not like was I try I came up with the idea like, okay, maybe we should do something different than MVVM or something like just do it in a way that makes sense for our application and things like that. That just thrown off the table. Like it's not going to happen. So it was kind of frustrating. And at that point, I thought by myself, okay, I'm going to join this course. That's the only thing I can do to break out of this mediocrity. Basically, that's how it felt. So I signed up for the course and never had any regrets because it's massive. I mean, it's extremely valuable.
Yeah, I agree. Can you highlight a bit what you find that is so valuable in the program? I think you mentioned a couple of things in the previous part of the conversation about like having all the dots connected, that kind of a narrative. But what else? Like, what would you say is instrumental to being such a valuable program and experience for a developer?
Well, I think most developers are already familiar, at least know that these things exist, like the solid principles, test-driven development, and but it's just hard to go there on the internet and read about it and think, okay, I can understand this, but then when you're called to implement it your own, like to apply these things, then it's just not gonna happen, right? It's kind of, I remember when I just started out on iOS development that I did a tutorial on using the table view APIs, for example, and delegates and stuff like that, and it made total sense. But now I need to go there and use these APIs to create something, feature for our application, and then I just couldn't do it. Like conceptually, you might know what all these things are about, but then try to go there and apply it. And this really helps me in the program because they go step by step, like little steps into the right direction. Start from really, maybe really easy and go in depth step by step a little bit further, introduce some new concepts and why things relate to each other, like the importance of the solid principles. And whenever they violate one of the principles, for example, they explain why that happened, and it really helps you connect the dots and everything that you need to have a proper foundation. And that's it sounds like it's only a foundation, but the thing is that most people don't pay enough attention on in these foundational skills. I think that's to me, I think it's the best thing that you can do for your career. Just focus on those fundamentals first, and not so much about frameworks and tools. It's not important. Yeah, well, of course you need to use them, but um, it's it's not gonna make the big difference.
Yeah, and I think you also start to see them as more of tools, like tool-like things where, okay, I love UIKit, I'm gonna use it, but I'm not gonna let it run all my decisions, all my architecture, all my other things. Like the framework will not be driving the decisions. I will be driving the decisions, and the framework will have to obey them to some extent. And to some people, that's hard to understand until they see it. So that's again another thing which I find super valuable in the program, is that you see these concepts live and applied in real apps to these frameworks, to these tools that we use on a day-to-day basis. Like you said, if somebody said like do test-driven development on iOS, it's like, well, you cannot do it. Well, actually you can. So
yes, you can.
Again, it's a very like they invested a lot of time into creating these lectures and the content, because applying these to all these general software principles and techniques to iOS took a while to see exactly, like you said, being there long enough to see the outcomes of making some of these decisions and what they lead to or lead away from. So it's it's definitely super valuable. Cool. So I'm still having my timeline in mind. So you joined the program. How long did it take to finish the program for you?
Almost a year. It took me almost a year to complete the main course.
Right.
Yeah, about a year.
And did you circle back and redone it, or was that just a single pass? How?
Well, no, it was just, it took me almost a year to complete it once, like coding along, doing all the challenges and all the stuff like that. After that, I also extended the program. So I go through a second run. I did a second run, which went a little bit faster because it didn't code along. But I tried to rewatch everything again, take notes, and then go there and build something similar without looking at the only looking at the notes, basically, not rewatching the videos and stuff like that. And then when I finished that, like, watch an entire module again, implement something similar, and then when you're done, go through the lectures again, see if you missed some things, make notes, try to improve on that. So it was kind of nice experience, because you will see that you eventually you miss some important stuff there. So it's a good idea to do it several times if you have the time.
I agree. I agree. So that's a side effect, side benefit of the program, is teaching you how to learn, because learning for us, it's not like a straight process. Like I start the program, I go through all the lectures, and at the end I know everything that's in the program. Or let's replace program with dependency injection book or any other topic you want, right? So what you also learn is like, no, to really learn something, I need to go through it several times. I need to practice it, like you said, build something similar, then look back at the notes, so there's a feedback loop there, and then apply it in your day-to-day work. So it doesn't come very, very fast. So again, very important note for me, because maybe in university or earlier we were taught in some way that we dealt with simpler concepts, so it was a straightforward line from not knowing to knowing. Now, when we go into more advanced skills and principles and techniques, it's no longer that case. So, I mean, you cannot say, I don't know, like you can say today I don't know TDD, I have zero knowledge of TDD, but I cannot say in a week, like, now I know TDD.
No, it's
is like
never gonna happen.
It's very hard, and it's like a step-by-step process, and you can say maybe I'm proficient after, I don't know, a few years or something like that, right? So it's not that easy to acquire that skill, and some people don't understand that, don't know that. So until you're exposed to it, you have a wrong expectation. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. And that's especially with you mentioning TDD, but I think it's especially the case with TDD. I mean, that's not something you learn in a few months, like read a book about it or watch some videos, and then you can go there and do it. It's not going to happen. I think it's going to take you years. And even then, I still learn new things, like some new refactoring techniques and stuff like that. It never ends, and it's not only related to TDD. But I think the problem with TDD is that it's kind of hard to grasp at first. It even though it's just a simple process, like these 3 steps that you just go over again and again, but to really be proficient on it and also productive, to master it and to be productive eventually. I think that's a whole different proposition. I mean, it's going to take you a lot of time.
I agree. I agree, and that's why many people have tried it, and I wouldn't say failed, but never got to the point where the benefits outweigh the costs. So
Yeah.
they would say it doesn't work, or it doesn't work for me, or something like that.
Yeah, you just didn't try hard enough, I
Yeah,
guess.
it's like going to the swimming pool, getting no instructor, jumping in the pool, trying for 30 minutes. Like, no, swimming is not for me, because I tried and I just can't keep at the surface level. I keep getting sunk at the bottom.
I mean,
it's almost the same.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Like, it's gonna take some time to master it, right? You can't go just expect the, okay, I'm gonna I'm gonna do TDD from now on, and that's it. No, it needs a lot of practice.
All right. So you said you needed about a year to finish the program at the first pass. Of course, this is ongoing, as we discussed, but how long did it take for you to start seeing the results from the program into your day-to-day work or at your work?
Well, I think even after the first couple of lectures, already it gave me some knowledge that I think, okay, I can apply this at work. But the problem was that it felt like nobody really cared about it, or I think it's the same story again. I couldn't really clearly express my ideas. And at the same time, they didn't, it felt like they just didn't want to listen to me. So it didn't, I didn't really get any benefits at work, at least, but what I noticed that personally I grew in such a short period of time. I improved my skills drastically. Like, it's massive. And now, since I switched jobs and have work at a company with like-minded developers that actually just listen to you when you have something to say, and the other way around, and they want the same thing, like they know that, okay, we are in a bad situation now, we need to improve some stuff here, then now you can really apply these things. Like, for me, it's the ultimate playground to experiment with stuff and try things out, and also things that I know that if we're going to change that it's definitely going to yield results. So now I think since the 5 months, since 5 months ago I joined this new company, now it really starts to pay off massively, and that's kind of nice to see. It's really nice.
Right. Thinking about the main line we draw in the beginning, where we said, like, transforming your career from close to burnout and highly stressed to very low stress, like, would you say that in the job that you had before, were you still in that situation where you felt stress and pressure, even though you started to gain the technical knowledge, but not having the right team would just keep you stress heavy? Was that the case, or am I getting it wrong?
Yeah, well, I was close to a burnout twice. So the first time was at the company that I worked for like 6 years.
6 years,
that was the first one. So I took a step back and said to myself, like, okay, something needs to change. And I also told this to my manager, like, we need to do something about this, because otherwise, I'm afraid I just need to quit this job. So we tried to keep some pressure off my shoulders, which helped. But then when I switched jobs to another company, it's not to be clear, it's not the company that I'm currently working for. But then I also reached that stress level again, because I knew we had a couple of issues there, and I knew that I had some skills to improve that situation, because at that time I was going through the course, the Essential Developer course. And so I learned some valuable things, and I thought, like, okay, we did the test suite, for example. We had a lot of tests, but I didn't trust them. I mean, every time you need to change something, then you break some tests, because everything was heavily mocked. Like, every class is tested in isolation. Like, if I call this method, then does it call that method and use that value to do something else? And that's it, basically. No, it wasn't not focused about what is actually the behavior that we want to cover. Like, what do we actually want this app to do? Like, so every time I want to create or change the structure of the code slightly, then all the tests would break, and you would basically have no safety net. And because of that, I was like, I just couldn't accept the fact that, okay, we have these issues. I want to do something about it. So I pushed really hard, tried really hard to make them see that we need to change something. But yeah, it just never happened. So I think that was the major stressing issue. Like, I kept pushing myself, like then something needs to change there. I just couldn't accept it and leave it like, okay, if nobody likes my ideas or doesn't want to buy in, then it's their choice, right? It is, I don't know, I couldn't just couldn't let go. And then yeah, I reached that we were being close to a burnout again. At the same time, I applied for a new job, multiple job interviews already. So at that time, when I was close to being to a burnout, I had a job interview at my current company, which kind of rescued me from that situation, which was nice. It saved me.
So you did a very good job at explaining how this whole journey went. And by the way, I think it takes a lot of vulnerability to admit these tough times. And thanks for putting this in the open, because
Yeah, no problem.
hopefully it helps other people to first of all understand that this is something that happens. It's not just like it can happen to me, because guess what, it can. And just having that overview, okay, how is my career going? Like, am I going in the right direction? Is this stress accumulating and I'm gonna head in the direction where something is gonna blow up? That's one thing. And the other, so this is beneficial to the general population, and then more specifically to the ones that did go there and know exactly what you're talking about. Then yeah, it's also helpful because there's hope, right? And hope is addictive. So if you say to somebody like, hey, I was able to get out of that. And to me, what I notice is like, you had this initial company where things just went to that point where you felt like, okay, this is no longer possible. Then you switch jobs, but also join the program. And just so you got all the foundational knowledge you needed. You connected the dots with the help of the program, which was awesome. But that alone was not enough, because not being able to express those skills at work and improving things and having a sense of contributing and things like that was still generating that accumulation of stress. So it's
exactly.
like a two component thing, that only when you were able to join this later company that you're now with, that you found the right setup with the right skills that you acquired from the program to actually live the life of a normal, happy developer that can, I know, feel respected, feel listened. And I mean, I'm sure you have challenges every day, right? With the code, with new features, with bugs, but now it's more manageable. It doesn't feel like
it's manageable. Yeah, for sure. I think you summarized it pretty well there. Like the thing is that now at my previous company, that maybe I got the technical expertise, but if you cannot express your ideas clearly and get buy-in from other people, then you will never be able to apply it. You will never get the chance to do it. And now at this company, where we have some like-minded people who actually are interested in things that you're about, you have to say, like, ideas, share your thoughts with them, or having discussions. Then, I mean, at some point in your career, it feels like, okay, technical stuff might not be the thing to focus on that much. Like, may need to focus on. I mean, you also need the soft skills. Like, you need to be a good communicator, for example. I think that's going to scale your results eventually when you reach that point. Like, okay, now I have a proper foundation which I can build upon. Okay, of course, you need to continue on that, try to improve it every day. But if you focus on other things like leadership skills, maybe improve your English fluency if that could be beneficial, then you will yield much better results than just focusing on the technical stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because nowadays we do work in an environment where we deal with stakeholders, with business owners, with other parts of the tech like organizations. So just having the ability to articulate ideas, to build cases, to explain consequences, decisions, things like that is super important. And I see this as a recurring theme for many developers that, like you said, first get the tech skills and there's like, nobody listens to me. How can I convince the team to do this and that? And I think you put it better than I can about how important it is. And it may start with being proficient at a language like English. So being able to express freely and without stress. And then you can articulate some ideas. But again, very, very important. And that also reduces the pain and the stress you feel, because you now feel like, okay, now people start listening to me. Even though, of course, sometimes they will say, okay, I understand what you're saying, we're still not going to do it like you wanted to, but it's enough. You feel heard, they understand, and it's
exactly.
all good. Like, it's not you're not married to the decision, right? You're married to just being heard and right.
Yeah, exactly. But also it's if you don't focus on these soft skills, then I think it's gonna hold you back. Like if you want to grow to a lead position, for example, if you cannot, if you don't focus on these soft skills, like how to communicate effectively, then it's also like people are not going to notice the things that you're capable of. Like you can you can be a fantastic developer, for example, but if they don't trust you because you can never clearly explain the benefits, for example, then you will never get the chance to apply it. And so they never see that how good you actually are, and you will never get rewarded for it, for example, things like that. So you need to focus on make yourself visible. Like even if you have something small that you achieved, like we worked on this and these are the positive results, share them with the business and with the people higher in rank, basically, so they see the value you bring to the table, instead of just trying to create the best code possible. If nobody's gonna notice, only your fellow iOS developers, that's it. But it's never gonna yield big results.
Right. Excellent. So again, to summarize, I think that's also an important idea or skill that you get from the program is focusing on soft skills. So while we, of course, focus a lot of the content on these tech skills, principles, techniques that we mentioned, there's also emphasis on soft skills and how you actually work. And like you said, communication being like a top skill required. So just having somebody, in this case, the program, remind you of these, creates that feedback loop, and it's like, okay, actually thinking about it, how am I doing this? Like, am I decent enough? Can I improve in which ways? And sometimes the biggest gain would be from improving those skills, not the tech skills, but it's not always the case. So again, having all that structured in the program, I think it's very helpful, because you touch all of these, and you don't have to watch several threads at the same time. It's like just following what's there, and everything gets connected in one way or the other.
So exactly.
Mentioning the program, like, could you just summarize what are the main takeaways, the biggest impact for you from the program? What would you say are these, or the one, or?
Good question. There are multiple things. Like at first, like when you just start a course, there's some introduction to get into, to do some proper planning as well, like to organize your learnings, if you say it like that, to come up with a plan and try to also that you need you need to need to structure your learning to focus on the right things. Like, is this going to help me reach my goals, right? And that is something that I didn't really pay attention to because I thought, yeah, I don't know, I'm just so passionate about this. I'm no motivated. I'm just gonna spend all the time I have doing this course, and that worked pretty well for me. But after I finished the course and I would like to go to the next step, like, okay, what do I need to focus on? Then I noticed that, okay, I should have paid more attention to that first introduction section. So I went back there, applied some stuff, and I mean, it was pretty nice, but yeah, I should have paid more attention there. But what is also nice is not only, yeah, the course focuses on a proper foundation and even goes a little bit beyond that because it provides you some additional sources, books to go really in depth there if you want to. But also it kind of provides you some steps, like even when you finish the course, then there are still it's kind of still the basics that you just explored, right? There's a lot of stuff that you can improve on, and one thing that that was really beneficial for me is that, okay, once you finish the course, now you can need to focus on these things. Like there's some ladder, like clear steps and things and goals that you need to focus on after you reach that. So it's not only like, okay, I'm going to do this course for like 1 year and that's it. No, it's provides you with some clear steps on how to continually progress in your career even after you finished it, which to me is, I think that's, yeah, I mean, there's so much value in this course. So maybe we should also mention that. But yeah, that's something that I keep
No,
reminding myself about.
yeah, let's
Once
do
in
it.
a while.
Let's mention a few more uh,
Well,
topics.
more like one other thing is that the importance of modularity. Like you need to be really mindful about dependencies between components. And when you say dependencies, most people think about packages, frameworks, pods, or whatever. But you can that's not the only dependency you can have, right? You can have a dependency on a module, but even a class can have a dependency on one tiny piece of code, like a function, a class, or whatever. Doesn't really matter what it is, but you need to be really mindful about that to manage these dependencies efficiently, um, because if you don't do that, then yeah, you're gonna end up with something unmaintainable for sure. Like,
Yeah.
and that's clearly pointed out in the course and shown by in examples and drawing diagrams to visualize it. It's, I know that's very valuable, and also the TDD, of course, because it's really hard to start out, but the entire course, they from beginning to end, everything is done in TDD, and you can follow along. So it's really nice if you want to go there and practice TDD. Then this is gonna help you big time to get started.
Yeah, nice. So both of them, I think, complement each other. So the
Yeah.
more you learn about TDD, the more modular and maintainable your code is. And the more modular and maintainable the code is, the easier it is to TDD, write other tests, change the test, change the behavior. So it's like, again, a loop.
Easier to reuse also. Yeah.
The program does a great job of showing this in detail.
Yeah, for sure.
So awesome. Do you have any advice for the people listening that want to also get control over their path, their development path, and how they're progressing in their careers, where they want to go, things like that? Like, what would you say is instrumental to your I think it's safe to call it a transformation because by what you told me, the things weren't always going in the right direction. So it's definitely a transformation more than just a simple change.
So yeah, any advice? I would say be careful with any content that's available on the internet. Try to focus on the original sources. Like if you want to learn something about test-driven development, for example, of course the course does a pretty good job in showing that, but also try to read the books like Test-Driven Development from Kent Beck, for example, because a lot of things on the internet, they just kind of misinterpret it in a way and that it's completely off with the original source. So it might be a setback if you think that, okay, this is the source of truth, then this is how you should do it. But maybe that's not the case. And also try to maybe read 2 or 3 different books about the topic and compare it and try to fill in the gaps. So be careful with your sources. That's basically what I'm trying to say. And also don't be married to tools. I mean, go for the foundation first, because that's what's going to make the big difference. That's going to be, you're going to profit from that like for your entire career, all the years to come. It's not only frameworks can be like timely, like this is a popular framework now, and in a couple of years nobody uses it anymore. You need to start from scratch. But there's those foundational ideas that have been around for decades, and they have been proven to work until today. So focus on that, because that's what's going to make the big difference.
Yeah, I agree, and especially with an idea that you maybe didn't express in the open, but I think it was subtle there, just having that mindset where you question something. So it's like, okay, is it really? Like when you learn something, it's very, I think it's very productive to, I think it was hidden between the reading several books on a topic. So you just avoid seeing everything through the view of, I don't know, Kent Beck on test-driven development. Maybe there are other people that see it differently, and of course he was the guy that created it basically, but it doesn't mean that you will reap all the benefits just by looking from his point of view at something. And I think that's another great benefit of the content from the program, is that you basically have multiple ways of looking at the same thing. Like the guys have read tons of books on all these topics before merging it all in the program, so you can definitely see influences from different authors and books and things like that. And the other nice advantage is being part of the community, as we are, you and I. Again, we have maybe slightly different views on test-driven development or on modularity, and then by talking to us and other people similar to us or different than us in the community, you have this way of finding nuances and maybe differences. I think there's a lot of value in that, because
for sure,
like you said, so learning is a multi-dimensional tool. So
and I mean also if you finish the program, then you have it feels like you understand most of the things, but then there are also these mentoring sessions available, and when you watch them, then you will be exposed to like slightly different use cases, and things start to click even more. Like you need to gather different sources. Like be careful with your sources, but try to see it from different angles. That makes things eventually click.
Right. So, but again, if the summary of the advice needs to be written, it should be just focus on the foundation, right? Foundational skills, transferable skills, non-platform, non-framework specific, just the basics. And
the basics, and be careful with your sources.
Be careful with the sources.
Yeah.
And I would add, like maybe that's my view, so we shouldn't necessarily add it, but now that we're here, I can say it. So I think one of the most important things in learning is just the exercise, right? The ability to have a feedback loop. So like you said in the beginning, where you actually get to see what happens when you do something. So it's just give yourself that opportunity to see what happens with some decisions you're making, because that's super valuable. Like, that's your personal experience that nobody can give you. Like, even if I tell you, like, hey, I did this and this happened after 3 years, it's nowhere near the level you gain where you see your decision, because you know your own thought process when you made that decision, so you see how it backfires.
Yeah, exactly. You need to see it for yourself, right? You can tell exactly like this is how, or give some advice or things, but you need to experience it for yourself to really make it click.
Awesome. And just for anyone that wants to reach out, or like a company or an individual that want to talk to you, what's the best way to find you?
Well, currently the best way to find me is just on LinkedIn. Just search my name and hopefully you will find me there. Shouldn't be that hard.
Cool. So LinkedIn's a good way.
LinkedIn, yes.
Awesome. So Peter, thanks a lot. I think we covered a lot today. It was super valuable, at least to me. I think about it as an individual, just talking to you was super helpful to learn how things can go, turning points in one's career, what can happen, and how to actually get back on the positive trajectory. So thanks for sharing that, for having been open about struggling times and things like that. So it was really a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thanks. I really enjoyed this conversation.
So I'll see you soon.
Yes.
And for you watching, if you want to learn more, just visit us at essentialdeveloper.com, and there you can find a bunch of free resources to improve your iOS dev skills. And you can find us on all the social channels, YouTube, Twitter, and so on. Thank you, and I'll see you soon.